My name's Thomas James. I work on behalf of Lightos, and I will be showing over the next few videos how to create an automated construction timeliner program. The workflow involved in this requires Revit to be opened and the relevant project opened within Revit. The use of the API command within Revit, which will create and populate and link a Microsoft project file. When the API is finished, you'll have a standalone Microsoft Office project file, at which point we can close Revit. We will then open Navisworks, import the NWC file, which we can export from Revit for the relevant project, import the Microsoft project file. Once all of those are in, we will then use a custom API to map the relevant elements in the Microsoft project file into the correct selection sets within Navisworks. Once it is all done, we will have a standalone Navisworks file. This image is the workflow for the entire process, which is broken into 3 separate areas. Each area I will explain in more detail, but as an overview, the very first container is the element selection and attribution. These are divided into different areas which are meant to replicate the actual construction sequence processes. The central container is to do with level association, ground level assignment, and the final container refers to the actual logical sequences that produce the task hierarchical structure as well as the tasks themselves. Looking at first container more specifically, once the process starts, it goes immediately into this element attribution and collection. There are 6 different containers within this: the civil items, structural items, first fix items, non-structural items, second fix items, and furnishings. The purpose of splitting into these 6 categories is to reflect the actual construction sequences. When a program is produced, it actually produces a more correct or typical format, element association and sequencing. Once all these elements have been collected and associated, the design options are collected together, and for each design option there will be a separate Microsoft project program produced. For each design level, the phases will be first categorized, and then we go on to correctly associating different levels with the structural levels. So the very first thing to do within this level set is determine which is the ground level. So if there are structural levels below, the sequence logic will occur in the opposite direction as opposed to the superstructure elements. There can be many architectural levels between structural levels. These, in terms of construction sequence, are irrelevant. However, elements may be hosted on them. So in order for those elements to be hosted at the correct structural level, there is a dialog box which will be shown later, which associates architectural levels with the relevant structural level. This requires user input. Once this is done, any elements on a particular architectural level will be then transferred to the defined structural level. Once all these items are grouped together, it is actually time to start exporting the procedure. The routine produces a construction timeliner program through a series of sequential loops and logical processes. First is to loop through each design option and create an individual project program. These were collected earlier. For each individual design option, it will look at the phases and then determine the order of phases based on their position within Revit. To establish the sequence in which the elements go up or down or are processed, you need to determine whether a particular element is a phase or demolish item. If it is a create item, the sequence going in the superstructure is a structural through first fix, non-structural, second fix, and then furnishings. The opposite sequence occurs for a demolition item. This is for a superstructure. If you have a substructure, these 2 processes will be reversed themselves. The item at the bottom refers to that inverse sequence for levels that are below and levels that are above. Once all items are included, you will determine if the next phase exists, and if it does, repeat the procedure. Once all the design options have been produced, you have as many schedules as design options, and then from there Primavera exports can occur, or you can use a program direct within Navisworks.